Hold on.
Is that on?
No. Hold on. Give us 1 second. Sorry about that. I messed up.
That's good.
Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And we're going to talk more about the Bill Gates story. You're going to do that in Spanish today.
Yes, because it's important.
And it's really starting to catch fire in the mainstream media. So hopefully we can get a movement of this to kind of counteract it. A lot of people in the UK and in the United States are now speaking up against it.
And concerned, rightfully concerned, because, I mean, he wants to block out the sun and not tell people about the consequences.
And we actually have a movie trailer when we go into the English segment called The Agenda, Their Vision, Your Future. It looks extremely good, at least in my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to go into your 15 minutes?
Sure. We're still testing things out, so bear with us. But thank you for being here. Así es, buenas noches, ¿cómo les va a todos? Por acá seguimos haciendo pruebas, seguimos tratando de mejorar todo. Entonces, ténganos tantita paciencia y gracias por estar acá. Me dio mucha risa cómo reaccionaron varias personas a todo el video que hice sobre Claudia Sheinbaum. No les gustó que les tocara su Botox ni a su nueva presidente, pero pues bueno, así son los gajes del oficio. Y pues el Botox sí es dañino, por más que les digan que no, nada más quería reiterar eso. Pero ahora sí, vámonos con la historia número 1, que es Bill Gates, que parece que ahora sí se quiere poner el sombrero de villano y tapar el sol, por más ridículo que suene, quiere tapar el sol y parece que ya está bastante avanzada la planeación. Y esto va a pasar en el Reino Unido, pero quién sabe dónde más quieran hacer pruebas, dónde más crean que sea una buena idea hacerlo y no sabemos las consecuencias, no se nos ha informado porque obviamente las élites siempre quieren dejar esos detallitos fuera del ojo público y decir que todo es por mejorar pues, al mundo en general. Entonces, Bill Gates, que ahora va a continuar haciendo todo lo posible por convertirse en la versión real de un villano de Marvel y por si no sabes sobre la brillante idea que ahora tiene, aparte de tratar de inocular al mundo con, digamos, sustancias que han sido comprobadas dañinas, ahora sí, y que, por ejemplo, gracias a su experimentación con estas mismas en la India hace unos años, ahora es persona non grata gracias a todo el desmadre que dejó por allá. Y entre sus múltiples preocupaciones, algunas de las cuales son, por ejemplo, la sobrepoblación, que en realidad ahora se ha vuelto un colapso demográfico mundial de tanta propaganda que nos han estado dando en estos últimos 50 años, o intentar buscar soluciones junto con alarmismo sobre el cambio climático que o contaminan más con sus soluciones o que son perjudiciales para la salud de quienes las consumen, como por ejemplo la carne falsa que se le ocurrió hacer y donde gastó tantos millones como inversionista porque le ayudaba en su narrativa sobre los peligros inventados que ya han sido comprobados falsos, como cuando decían que por comer carne roja se causaban excesos de CO2 y metano, que después científicos comprobaron que era falso, pero pues ya nos quedamos con toda la idea y con la primera narrativa y con las soluciones que nos dejaron mal diseñadas. Bueno, pues ahora para continuar con su arco de villanos, su nueva inversión, la cual está a punto de ser aprobada, es tapar el sol. Y sí, suena exagerado y ridículo, pero al parecer es lo único que se les ha ocurrido para luchar contra el cambio climático y que parece la mejor solución. Que dentro de pocas semanas, ahora sí el Reino Unido, que también pues vive, y si ya de por sí vive bajo una nube, no solo de lluvia, pero de propaganda gracias a su propio gobierno, van a probar experimentos para bloquear el sol y pues no es como que al Reino Unido se le conozca porque siempre se andan calcinando, como por ejemplo en Sonora. No hay tanto sol por allá que digamos. Es un proyecto de geoingeniería solar, así se llama, una rama de la ingeniería que busca modificar el clima de la Tierra y se llama en específico Control de Radiación Solar o Stratospheric Perturbation Experiment en inglés. El proyecto es financiado por la Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, que pues obviamente es de Bill Gates, y su ex esposa Melinda, que se escabulló rápidamente. Y todo esto involucra la liberación de aerosoles a la estratosfera para reflejar la luz solar hacia afuera en vez de hacia la Tierra, que normalmente llega a la Tierra y es bastante importante para la vida por acá. Y varias veces ya esta misma élite científica ha dejado claro que cualquier científico que esté en desacuerdo o que a través de investigación desmiente dogmas que tiene toda esta comunidad de élites, será rápidamente excomulgado y su trabajo, por más importante y verídico que sea, no solo es olvidado, pero también es expuesto negativamente en medios como... Entonces no se puede dar ningún tipo de crítica sobre estas nuevas ideas que se les ocurren. Puede que sea por esto que las consecuencias negativas no han sido discutidas abiertamente todavía sobre esta nueva idea que se les ocurrió. Cuando más claro vimos todo esto fue durante los tiempos turbios de 2020, porque no puedo decir el nombre de lo que pasó por acá en YouTube porque nos tiran el canal, cuando un grupo de científicos independientes intentaron alertar sobre lo que le querían inyectar a todo el mundo y sobre los orígenes del virus que andaba propagándose y causando estragos, y las élites con intereses de por medio lograron llevar a cabo una campaña masiva de desprestigio, de la cual apenas muchos de estos científicos se están recuperando, ahora que la narrativa por fin se puede cuestionar, aunque sea un poquito más. Y pues ya durante décadas hemos sabido que Bill Gates es de los financieros públicos número 1 de estas mismas élites científicas y que ahora continúan con sus esfuerzos por persuadir a la población en general de que deben de cambiar todos sus hábitos mientras ellos mismos continúan arruinando al planeta sin consecuencias. Y lo vemos bastante marcado. Y aquí vemos que tienen el complot multimillonario para bloquear el sol. Todo esto es un artículo que traduje de inglés a español, entonces si hay algunas cosas que no hacen mucho sentido, pues es por eso. Pero dice... Lo que una vez fue un punto de la trama de tono Highlander 2 y Los Simpsons puede que algún día llegue a pasar en la vida real. Estos bichos raros multimillonarios en Silicon Valley están planeando bloquear el sol. ¿Por qué? Porque nos estamos quedando sin tiempo para detener el rápido calentamiento, que dicen ellos, del planeta, y un problema radical pronto puede requerir soluciones radicales. Y pues obviamente, como dice el artículo, toda esta élite, en especial de Silicon Valley, o sea, todos los que generaron dinero gracias a sus grandes ideas tecnológicas, y varias de ellas que a veces no lo ameritaban. Bill Gates sí, digamos. Pero varios de ellos han estado invirtiendo en todo este tipo de experimentos científicos y nuevas ideas de cómo combatir al cambio climático. Y la idea de que para cualquier persona todo esto sea tolerable, que con alguien que con suficiente poder pueda decidir que él tiene el derecho a bloquear el sol, o todos ellos tienen el derecho para bloquear el sol, con partículas aerosolizadas, es bastante aterrador, y no es como que no lo llevan haciendo ya durante bastantes años, ya lleva planeado bastantes años, y hace poco en vivo, Guy y yo discutimos otro proyecto que se estaba llevando a cabo en Israel, donde también planeaban y querían bloquear al sol, pero no están en su derecho de hacerlo. En especial si la gran mayoría de las personas no tienen ni idea de qué quieren ni de qué tipo de consecuencias puede haber, y tapar de forma experimental uno de los elementos más esenciales para la vida en la Tierra, que es el sol, Y pues como también son experimentos, no se sabe bien qué efectos puedan tener, y es por esto que un aspecto poco discutido sobre todo este nuevo plan de Billy es el consentimiento informado de pues todos los que podrían ser afectados. Nos podríamos incluir a nosotros también, quién sabe hasta dónde pueda llegar todo esto. Y pues toda esta idea del consentimiento informado es algo que se pasaron por el arco del triunfo también durante los tiempos turbios del 2020, porque no puedo decir el nombre. El consentimiento informado es un principio cuya necesidad se consideraba tan evidente que al finalizar la Segunda Guerra Mundial, los aliados colgaron a 7 doctores que habían violado el consentimiento informado de sus propios pacientes. No voy a retocar porque tampoco puedo hablar del señor del bigote, pero pues en ese tiempo a nadie le pareció exagerado esa reacción, dada la obviedad de la importancia del consentimiento informado en la experimentación médica y científica. Pero ahora pues se les olvidó. Aún así, el gobierno británico aprueba estos experimentos. ¿Por qué permitimos que crean que están en su derecho de afectar, y ahora sí ni sabemos de qué manera, a la población, pues no solo del Reino Unido, pero una vez más, quién sabe qué tan lejos todas estas partículas puedan llegar a propagarse? Y algo que han salido a decir es que van a intentar minimizar la toxicidad de aerosoles y químicos que planean usar, pero pues ya nos han vendido gato por liebre varias veces en estos últimos años, entonces ¿será cierto? ¿Quién sabe? Dicen que todo este experimento es reversible, pero una vez más, ¿cómo saben que lo pueden asegurar de tal manera si siguen fases experimentales? Y pues con el récord reciente que tienen todas estas élites científicas, en mi opinión, han perdido pues toda credibilidad. Y ahora el gobierno del Reino Unido, este es un artículo otra vez que traduje del inglés a español, pero aquí dicen: los experimentos para atenuar el sol serán aprobados dentro de unas semanas. Y si nos fijamos, esto es del 22 de abril, entonces es reciente y es de los pocos artículos que encontré hablando sobre el tema que tuve además que traducir al español. Pero ahora el gobierno del Reino Unido ha decidido destinar 50 millones de libras esterlinas a un proyecto llamado ARIA, siempre les ponen nombres bien raros, donde anunciarán durante las próximas semanas el inicio de todos estos experimentos. Y pues también existen otros tipos de experimentos de geoingeniería que también pues quieren usar para reflejar la luz del sol, como por ejemplo el abrillantamiento de las nubes, aunque pues con este experimento de Bill Gates lo que se haría es básicamente recrear una explosión volcánica. Y sabemos lo que pasa durante explosiones volcánicas: se tapa el sol, pero ahí todos esos elementos y químicos son naturales y es un proceso natural por los cuales la Tierra ha pasado pues millones de veces desde que se generó la Tierra. Pero pues no han indicado qué componentes o químicos usarán para aerosolizar y dejar caer encima de la Tierra, encima de lugares donde hay agua, qué pasa con el agua, qué pasa con los animales, con sembradíos, con las plantas, etcétera. No nos han dicho, pero estamos a unas semanas de que empiecen los experimentos. Así que pues dentro de las próximas semanas puede que nos enteremos de que sí taparon el sol y que se inició este tipo de experimentos, pero pues quién sabe si nos informarán sobre las consecuencias o pues lo que encontraron o los efectos secundarios que haya tenido. Por ahora, pues esto le va a tocar al Reino Unido porque su gobierno accedió a que las élites científicas y billonarios los usen como ratas de laboratorio sin su consentimiento informado, que pues es lo más importante de toda esta historia, además de que pues estén experimentando en general con nosotros sin que nos enteremos varias veces. Pero bueno, ahora sí, espérenme. Leeré sus comentarios a ver si alguien ha dicho algo sobre todo este tema. Walker dice: buenas noches, buenas noches. No se oye, no se escucha. Ay, no, sin audio. Ya sí, ya escucharon. Ok, qué bueno, sí funciona el audio. Gracias a todos, Azúcar con Azúcar, a Walker, a todos los que nos dijeron que no se escuchaba. Walker dice: los paneles solares hacen que donde se pongan el suelo se muera, ahí ya no crece nada, en parte porque pues tapan el sol, que es justamente lo que quieren hacer en el Reino Unido, y ya no les puede dar el sol, pero también porque a veces los paneles solares, el tipo de químicos que se usan para las reacciones dentro de esos paneles solares, también pueden llegar a afectar pues a toda la vegetación que está ahí al lado, y pues ahí se quede. Walker dice, derechos humanos que han dicho estas cosas, o es más importante el lobby LGBT, exactamente, los derechos humanos ahora sí de toda la población en general del Reino Unido y de pues, todos los demás que los rodean, a quienes les va a caer toda esta ceniza. No se ha dicho nada, nadie ha salido a decir nada sobre la importancia del consentimiento informado en estudios científicos, médicos. Nada más háganlos porque tenemos dinero y como estamos hasta arriba podemos hacer lo que queramos. Básicamente se creen dioses en la tierra. Rafa dice, a ver si pueden hablar más del clima. Sí, hablaremos más del cambio climático en El Monstruo Verde, que es a donde nos vamos después de estar un tiempo en YouTube. El en vivo continúa después en RUMBLE. Pero ahora sí siento que ya hablé suficiente. Estamos probando todo este nuevo formato de hacer la sección en español para luego poder cortarla. Como mencioné antes, que creo que era cuando no se escuchaba. Tuvimos varias reacciones al video de la presidente Claudia Sheinbaum. Varios se enojaron conmigo por hablar de sus procedimientos cosméticos y varios otros también se enojaron de que hablé mal sobre los procedimientos cosméticos, pero pues una vez más eso habla más de ellos y además la presidenta no le importa realmente lo que la gente diga. Pero ahora sí, rápidamente, a ver si no dice nada más nadie. Muchas gracias por estar por acá. Y Rafa, no había visto, pero muchísimas gracias también por el superchat de 20 pesos que dice denle like al en vivo, comenten y compartan. Sí, muchas gracias. Siempre se me olvida decir que por favor compartan y le den like a los en vivos para que más gente se entere y para que vean el segmento en español también en vivo. Y ahora sí, vámonos con inglés y con Guy, porque hay varias noticias interesantes también para YouTube. So there we go.
Very good. That was a pretty complex segment. So.
Yes, it was hard to try to remember stuff as well, and
then
the articles.
And we're
stuff.
different camera switching today.
I told them we were testing things. A lot of people said that there was no audio, so hopefully it works. But
there was no audio. I didn't check the audio.
But now there's audio.
Oh, there is now.
Then they said there was audio. Yeah.
Okay, well, we have the audio recorded separately, so hopefully for the clip it would be good.
Yes.
We are going to clip all your Spanish segments. Yes. So at the end of the Spanish segments, if anybody asks questions about the segment, we're going to include it in the clip every day.
Yeah.
So
in the clip that comes out the next day. So send your comments. And also, I'll say it in English as well. Rafa sent 20 pesos super chat, just saying please like and subscribe. So yes, thank you, and share, which I always forget to say. Walker says, I hear perfectly. Okay, good. Now people hear. We'll see what happens with the audio.
There'll be no clip tomorrow if there's not good audio.
There might be no clip tomorrow, or I might just quickly try to redo something about it after, and even include your comments then. But yes.
Okay. Well, do you want to get on to the
because you have
stories?
A bunch of different things you wanted to.
Okay, we've been talking a lot about. There's a new movie coming out called The Agenda. Mm-hmm. It's kind of about the elites controlling the population through food, housing, and water.
So essentially
things
what
like
I
this.
just talked about.
Yeah, a lot of what we're just talking about. And in the last few days, we've been talking a lot about these subjects with the Canadian election coming up, with Keir Starmer, and with what's happening in the EU. They're disqualifying a lot of people trying to run for presidents of different countries and things like this. This trailer looks really good. We don't want to get hit with the copyright, so we will be pausing it and talking about it periodically.
Yeah. So in case you haven't seen it, we'll see it now. Hold on.
And I don't think anybody's perfect. And I don't think anybody's seen it. The movie's not out yet, so.
And it's an independent movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't hear anything.
There we go. Let's start it again.
Sure.
The lust to control other human beings is a story as old as time. There's a very strong drift in the direction of globalization, of the ultimate centralization of control in the hands of unelected officials at supranational organizations.
So it's really about globalization and how they're trying to avoid democratic governments and things like this. So let's keep going.
They want all of the resources of the world in their pocket. The bigger picture is that an attempt is underway now to collapse liberal democracy and replace it with global technocracy.
This is a coup. They're saying we can control with rules. We don't need currency anymore.
It's like an inverted prison. You are supposedly free to roam about, but everything you want to access is behind lock and key.
The potential for social control is gigantic and potentially irreversible.
Basically all I ever talk about. So it's like I made this documentary.
Even though it's an independent film, I gotta say it seems very well produced. It seems like it has some money behind it, which is really good because sometimes you get these independent globalist films. Anti-globalist films that are just under budget, let's say.
Yeah.
This one looks pretty good.
But now it's also easier with like all the tools that people have.
It's 3 minutes.
They plan to commandeer land, reduce farming, and radically change the food we eat, transform the supply of electricity, and then dictate how we use it, and replace currency with a system of credits. All three strategies are built on the premise of a climate crisis caused by carbon dioxide.
I do not think there's a climate crisis, and I base that on all the evidence and the climate data sets that we build to answer questions just like that.
And this is why they won't let scientists that have the other side speak up.
And that's literally what I just said in Spanish, that like the scientific elite essentially, as soon as someone steps out of line and questions the dogmas that they have, is essentially removed. And we saw it during the dark times of 2020 as well.
Well, it's one big interconnected web, and if some of these dominoes are taken out, then the pile of dominoes isn't going to fall one after another. So this may be why the UK is really pushing for this climate.
Blocking the sun?
Yeah, blocking the sun.
It is very clear that they want a catastrophic story.
There is no single science paper that proves conclusively that humans control all or most of the global climate.
Europe's mad dash towards net zero is effectively economic suicide. Politicians are purposely impoverishing ordinary people, purposely deindustrializing Europe.
Did you see who that was?
Keir Starmer.
With Mark Carney.
Oh, that was with Mark Carney.
Mark Carney, the unelected Prime Minister of Canada, and maybe the next Prime Minister of Canada as well.
And it is a completely organized deindustrialization of the EU right now. They're tearing down their nuclear power plants. They're massive flooding immigration, so their systems are breaking down. They're ready to bring a digital currency in.
Damage in the name of saving the planet. It does make you ask, what is it we're actually saving if we're paving it over?
I think what we're dealing with here is actually a global war on agriculture.
When you look at how many farms are selling up, we're walking into food shortages.
If I can switch everybody from real food to pharma food, then 100% of the agriculture industry can go through my publicly traded.
And that's what I talked about too. Like Bill Gates also financed fake meat.
Well, for a long time I was harping on especially in the EU, but all over the world right now, you see the governments confiscating farmland. And why are they confiscating farmland? They want to own the resources, so they own and control the people.
And it quietly happened in Norway, even though there were a bunch of protests and a lot of other EU countries that were starting to establish those policies.
People are waking up, and their last little dash for their climate blocking the sun out is happening right now, but people aren't behind that. That's why they didn't take a vote. That's why they didn't have a debate.
That's also why it's hard to find even news about it.
Yeah, they're trying to slip it in under the radar. But now that news is coming out of it, a lot of people are suspecting they've been doing this actually for years, and there's evidence starting to come out.
And they have, because I mean, we talked about the whole Israeli-backed project. There's other projects, like I spoke about, like essentially bleaching the clouds or like making them whiter so they reflect more sunlight. Like there's different projects, but they all have to do with blocking out the sun.
These are crazy ideas. Like what could go wrong is it's not worth a few degrees. I'm okay with the world getting a little bit hotter. I'm not okay with it getting cooler. Because if it gets cooler, more people die from cold weather climate than hot weather climate every year. And
also we know the differences between hot weather climates and cold weather climates regarding people's like just stability in general, their health, etc.
Well, in cold weather climates, governments have a lot more control because the people depend on the governments a whole lot more.
In stocks, and I have complete control.
This is the biggest public relations scam in the history of the world. But it's far more than that. It's a blueprint. It is the action plan.
All life on Earth is going to be radically changed.
Everything will be monitored. The environmental consequences of every human action.
The general population cannot fathom the psychopathy of the vision that they're facing.
Once the digital ID is in place, it's game over for humanity.
Okay, so that's the name of the movie. The Agenda, Their Vision, Your Future. I don't know when it's coming out yet. I was trying to look. There's a lot of talk online about this, but there's not a date of when it's actually going to release. So we'll see what happens. I wish this would have released before the Canadian election.
Yeah, but they would have tried to block it anyways. But this is also why I say, what was I going to say? Don't use TikTok. Because it's like the beginnings of kind of how and what they want to do. One of it is, I mean, what the CCP already does. And it's just kind of allowing it to come in to the West.
When we talk about these subjects, a lot of people, it's hard to talk about them in an interconnected way, but they are all interconnected. This is why I talk digital ID. This is why I talk about farmland being taken, what's going on in South Africa right now.
With the farmers.
Yeah, what's going on in the EU, how they're disqualifying politicians. All this was this big globalist agenda, and they're holding on by a thread right now. And
it is slowly crumbling.
Well,
Hopefully.
when they're holding on by a thread, they're willing to take radical action.
Yeah.
And I think what's going on in the UK right now with trying to block out the sun, I think this is part of their radical action. Mm-hmm. If they do block out the sun, it's going to stop food production. Then they're going to have to grow food in their warehouses like they've been practicing.
Yeah, and we'll continue to see their last-ditch efforts, and they'll might be even scarier than just blocking out the sun, which is already
crazy.
Yes.
Crazy.
Insane. Quickly, Maoist says, I recommend the series Common Side Effects, talks about pharmaceutical industries, and it's related to this, I think. Thank you. So also for everybody, Common Side Effects.
Oh, I haven't watched that.
And there are a lot of other similar kind of documentaries as this one. I spoke about Stephen Shaw, the documentary by Stephen Shaw about population collapse. I think it's called Population
Yeah, there's
Collapse.
a lot of good documentaries that are individual subjects, but this seems to be really encompassing the broad scope of things, which I like.
Mm-hmm. And going against the 2030 agenda, 2035. They keep changing the date because they can't reach it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, did you want to go into this, what's going on in UK schools right now? Do you have an article with that?
I couldn't find an article, but I mean, I did find a kind of website advertising it.
Okay, well, let's go into it.
So yes.
And then I got a clip after, so we can show the people this is actually going on.
So apparently in the UK, there's this plan that children in public schools should go visit mosques, but there's not the same for, churches or temples, Jewish temples, or any other sort of religion. It's basically just for...
Well, first of all, church and state, I thought were separate.
Yes.
But not when it comes to mosques. Not when we're about to watch a video in a minute. When they bring these kids into this mosque, they expect them to uphold Sharia law while they're in the mosque. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like an
pre-training.
Pre-training, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and there's not the same kind of reverence, I would say, given to other religions.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if it was kind of like, we're visiting everything, that's kind of more okay.
Church and state are supposed to be separate.
Yes, but the education children need to know religion exists.
Yeah, you teach education in the classroom. You don't bring them into mosques and churches.
Well, but I'm all for example, the format of homeschooling where you go out and actually go touch the world and see the world that you're talking about. So, I mean, I'm not super against them going on tours, but it should be all-encompassing. If it's like a religion class, you should go to all the religions that are available.
I think you separate church and state, and you can teach about it in the classroom, but you don't bring people into the mosques or the churches.
But for example, if
I'm very pro Christianity. So.
But if they go to a deconsecrated church, let's say, would you be against that as well? If it's now a museum?
That's different. They don't have imams there preaching to you. Mm-hmm. So. Well, let's watch the video here. Or do you have more? What else is on here?
Well, it's just there's a website called visitmymosque.org. This page contains a map and a list of a wide range of mosques across the UK, which publicize their offering of school tours.
Okay,
and then they can go check them out.
Oh, this was the wrong one. Let me see if I can find it.
But I mean, I'm all for, especially as someone that is not religious, I'm all for teaching religion and teaching people about different religions and what they mean, what kind of values they hold, etc.
Go to you for a minute. I gotta transfer the file over.
But what I'm not for is to exactly just publicize and make one religion kind of the focus and the thing that cannot be spoken about negatively, but then shit on essentially every other religion.
Okay, I'm adding it right now. I'm almost there.
Okay. If you want to send any comments right now, I can read them. Thank you to everybody that is here.
And we can go into the 3-shot?
My stalling.
No, the other one.
What other one?
The other 3-shot
I don't have it anymore because he changed all my stuff. So now I don't have as much controls as I used to.
Okay, let's go into this one because it shows the vertical videos perfectly.
Sure. Again, we're still doing tests. I think we will never finish.
We're not doing tests anymore.
Well, but we're trying things out.
Okay.
While the visitors get their first taste of Islamic prayers, it's come to Ahmed's attention that Isaac isn't dressed properly for the occasion.
Pull your socks up a bit more. In prayer, he had his socks under his knees and he was wearing shorts, so his knees were showing. And in Islam, you need to have from your belly button to your knees covered to be praying, and his knees were showing.
That's their uniform. That's their uniform.
Yeah, but you can see what's kind of happening here. I mean, I don't like this whole scenario.
Mm-hmm. Pull his socks up to cover it up.
Quietly, will you stand up? Sometimes in trying to educate others in our values, we may come across as...
And this is not a one-way street. This is what we call a two-way street. So they're bringing the kids into the mosque, but they're also creating separate rooms and allowing the kids to pray during the day, which is okay for prayer, but it's really going to affect other students.
And also, I mean, if you don't know, I mean, I could really go into it right now, but there was a whole big case in the UK regarding someone that they call the strictest headmistress in the UK. And she essentially...
Well, why don't we finish this and then we'll go into that.
Fine.
Rude or abrupt. And that is a concern I have with some of our students. And that is something which they have to learn how not to.
I have never prayed before. I've never even thought about it. But I've meditated before. And it was really nice just sort of being in the room with them and having that unity of everyone doing something together at the same time and doing the same thing. And it felt really together.
Because they've taken away all the other religions.
Well, this is bringing in that one world religion, you know? But
why does it have to be Islam?
Well, no, one world religion is where they combine Islam with Judaism and Christianity. The Pope was a big facilitator of that. Okay, why don't you go into the headmistress thing you were going to say?
Yes, so I'm just quickly looking at, trying to find kind of something just to show quickly who she is. Give me 1 second. Thank you all for all your patience. Okay, so a few years ago now, I think last year, 2 years ago, Catherine Birbal Singh, who has been coined the strictest head teacher in Britain, decided to ban prayer in her school, which is called the Michaela School. It's like a special type of school for lower income people in the UK, and they have a different they're allowed to have different ideals and different ways of teaching than regular public schools. But apparently she decided that because she wanted everybody to be united, not to dedicate special rooms, for example, just for Islamic prayer, but rather tell everybody that essentially religion was banned in school because what they're there to do is to focus on school and then they can go home and pray, whatever. This became a huge thing. They started calling her a racist. They started calling her the worst person on earth. She had intimidation. She had racial harassment because, as you can see, she's not white herself. So
yeah, I'm going to say this. I don't think they should have prayer rooms even in the school. Now that I'm sitting here thinking,
what she was saying.
Yeah, but now that I'm thinking about it, because if they want prayer rooms in the school, they should have a Muslim school. Just like if Christians want to pray and have Catholicism part of their school, they go to a Catholic school.
I think there is also that, but in the UK, part of the system also has to do with where you live.
Yeah.
So,
but you can send them to a private school.
Yes,
that's
but then
the thing.
Expense, etc.
Well, no, you can have free private schools that are religious.
Okay, but in this specific case, the Michaela's school was already a school for low-income children, so.
Okay.
And eventually she essentially won. But it is interesting that she was subjected to so much harassment just by saying, in our school, we don't have separate things for students. It would be a hassle to try to even find the spaces. Everything would get disrupted because she tries to be very centered in the school and in the teachings they do, which is why the students do so well. But she received harassment also from the UK government trying to force her to do it.
Well, it's 8% of the population right now in the UK are Muslim. So the school kids, you got to ask, it's got to be even a lower percentage than that. And you're going to make these huge concessions, but you're not making these concessions for anybody else.
Yes.
So it's a little crazy.
And trying to separate religion, except in this case.
Okay. Well, do you want to go into this? This is a little bit of a dry article, the next one, but it's about the Supreme Court here.
Yes.
Oh, you got the same video I do.
Yes. But because there's no real article about it.
Yeah.
But apparently Alan Schoenfeld, an attorney for Montgomery County Public Schools, just admitted to the Supreme Court because they're doing a lot of hearings right now about this, that the school is trying to influence students by using explicit books in class.
And we're going to go over, it's almost a 4-minute clip. We're going to pause it throughout. It's kind of dry because it's a judge talking to a lawyer and the lawyer's trying to snake his way out and he doesn't want to admit to things. The judge ended up getting him. The judge is a Supreme Court judge, so he's one of the highest judges in the U.S. So we'll pause it periodically throughout, but it is important to listen to, so I did add it in here.
We'll go to yours or mine?
And this is happening all over the world. So although the U.S. is the one highlighting this because they're trying to root this stuff out of their system, a lot of this stuff is rooted in other places. They're just leaving it in there.
Yeah. Here in Mexico, I don't know if you all remember, we had a similar thing when they decided to change all the public schooling books.
Oh, okay.
Do you, in Montgomery County, teach students normally about human? What age do you?
Well,
it went away.
Do you?
Oh, I didn't record the whole thing.
Okay, I'll do it.
Oh, damn it.
Tell me if people can hear this.
Oh, hold on. I gotta. Okay, go ahead.
Let's see if it works.
In Montgomery County, teach students normally about human sexuality?
I think that it begins in either 4th or 5th grade.
The human sexuality class.
You're going to hear him say later, it's kindergarten. Mm-hmm. So.
And I know I shouldn't stereotype, but from the tone of voice, he plays for a specific team.
And for a long time, they said, oh, no, this isn't going on. You're trying to ban books. It's not in schools. No, no, no. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's keep going.
The Family Life and Human Sexuality curriculum. Okay. I'm not entirely sure.
Starts in 4th or 5th grade, you think?
So.
Is there anything you can point us to in the record on that?
I don't think so.
Okay. And second, these books are being used in English class.
The division between English class and other things in a 2nd grade classroom doesn't really exist. You're sort of in a room with a teacher and sometimes...
No, I appreciate that. I went to 2nd grade too.
Yeah.
But it's part of the English curriculum that these books are being used in.
And this is an important point. It's part of English class. This isn't human sexuality, and that's how they snuck it in these schools.
Reproduction.
they brought it into these human reproduction classes, and then they expanded it and just put it over into English because they kept dropping the grade till 2nd grade, and they said, well, all the subjects are kind of combined.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was.
Yeah, I'm not fighting the premise. I'm just saying that
it's not the math class.
It is not.
It's not the human sexuality class.
It is certainly not
class.
The human sexuality class. Yeah. I'm just sort of fighting the premise that there's a neat distinction.
Okay, and they're being used in English language instruction at age 3. Some of them.
So Pride Puppy was the book that was used for the pre-kindergarten curriculum. That's no longer in the curriculum.
That's the one where they are supposed to look for the leather and things and bondage, things like that.
It's not bondage. It's a woman in a leather.
Sex worker, right?
No, that's not correct. No.
I read it. Drag queen and drag
correct.
queen.
The leather that they're pointing to is a
judge
woman.
So it was like a drag queen, but it's the same thing. Continue?
Yeah, continue.
Leather jacket. And one of the words is drag queen in the search.
And they're supposed to look for those.
It is an option at the end of the book, correct?
Yeah, okay. And you've included these in the English language curriculum rather than the human sexuality curriculum to influence students. Is that fair? That's what the district court found. Do you agree
I
with
think
that?
to the extent the district court found that it was to influence them towards civility. The natural consequence of being exposed
Whatever, but to influence them.
in the manner that I just mentioned, yes.
So this was the huge point, and this is what a lot of people are talking about. He just admitted in a court of law, the highest court of law, and he's a lawyer, that they put it there to influence these children.
Yes, towards civility. But I mean, we all know what they mean by all that.
Yeah, civility. Sex work is civility to them.
Yes.
So.
S work.
Okay, let's keep going.
And responding to parents who are concerned, do you agree that there was some intemperate language used?
I don't know that those were responding to parents who were concerned. This was after the fact for most of these comments. And this was in a very public setting, which obviously got heated, and some intemperate comments were used, certainly.
Yeah. And I wanted to understand your context that you were giving about the statement that some Muslim families, it's unfortunate that this issue puts some Muslim families on the same side of an issue as white supremacists and outright bigots. I think,
and this became a huge issue. The liberals didn't know what to do because Muslims are voting for Trump.
And it also happened in Canada.
Yeah, it happened in Canada as well. It happened with
parents.
And it's not just Christianity and Muslims. When it comes to actually voting, there's single issues, and those single issues, if you have kids, are your kids. And if you're religious and you have kids, whether you're Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, you are probably going to vote in a similar block. Yes. Especially if it's crazy stuff going on. Okay, let's keep going. It's almost done.
Response to Justice
For one more
Sotomayor,
minute.
you're trying to give some context to that?
I don't think I was speaking directly about that comment. I think that comment was given or was made in June, which was several months after the decision to withdraw the opt-outs was made. I don't have context for that statement, no.
Okay. And then the legal question. Why isn't discrimination against religion a burden on religion? If a state, now this is hypothetical, not moving away from the record, if state actors intentionally discriminate against religion, what secular purpose, valid secular purpose could that serve? And how wouldn't that be a burden?
And this is how they've opened the door to reconstituting religion into schools for a long time in the United States, not for its entire history, because religion used to be in schools, but there was a point where they had the separation of church and state, and a lot of places around the world adopted the same thing. But now they're saying discrimination of LGBTQ, of all these other groups, well, you're discriminating against the religious groups. So if you use the context that they use to protect LGBTQ and all these other crazy groups, you can use that same context for religion and possibly get religion put back into schools.
Which I also don't think is a good idea.
But if you have
because you just said separation of church and state with the Muslim thing, so
yeah, I'm all for separation of church and state, but you can't have all these protected groups in there.
Yes,
that's the thing.
And I mean, this ideologically essentially is a religion as well.
If you're going to protect these groups with this, then you have to let religion back in. That's the thing, or you have to not play favoritism to certain groups.
Yes, not promote certain ideologies.
You're just tired today.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on the hypothetical, what the state is doing, and whether there's a secular purpose. That's hard to imagine one. But if the state is discriminating
against Muslims or Catholics or Protestants or whatever,
I think this court has recognized that when an enactment that discriminates on its face, or has recognized with respect to an enactment that discriminates on its face, it is intrinsically coercive. That's how the court has performed the burden inquiry. If you are privileging one religion over another, you are coercing people to subscribe to that particular set of beliefs in order to get...
So that's a burden.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
That's literally what they're doing in the alphabet community, which is now essentially a religion, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I just wanted to bring that up and bring more fact-based, a little bit of journalism there, I guess, because we've been doing a lot of culture, so it's good to see what's actually going on in the court. Yes. This is the kind of stuff I watch all day, though.
Yeah. Let me try to find, but we understand that a lot of people might not.
Okay, let's just keep going.
Okay, I was going to try to find the book, but...
No, it's fine. I don't want to keep trying to... We've been trying to find things all day here.
Sure.
Okay, let's go to the next article. And it's going to be the Bill Gates thing.
The same one I spoke about.
So just briefly go over it because we did talk about it a lot yesterday, but I got a new clip of a bunch of scientists talking on stage to a large group of people. I believe it's in the UK. So these scientists can't even really justify it. And when they do justify it, even they admit there's big risks here.
Yeah. And I also, before we start, want to recommend the podcast, Dark Horse podcast from Brett Weinstein and Heather Hying. They're both scientists that essentially got kicked out during the whole mass exodus during the dark times in 2020 for voicing opinions that are now essentially being called truthful. But they did a very interesting thing about this as well in their latest episode. So
okay.
I might link it somewhere. But yes, experiments to dim the sun will be approved within weeks. Scientists consider brightening clouds to reflect sunshine among ways to prevent runaway climate change, and also what we discussed of the essentially clouds of volcanic eruption, mimicking a volcanic eruption to also block out the sun to cool the earth.
Okay, and I just made a few notes here today because I watched a lot of this. I guess it was kind of like a press conference, but not really. They were just on stage talking to a bunch of people. And a lot of these are the head scientists in the UK that are really pushing for this stuff. So one scientist warns it could kill tens of thousands.
And the lives.
In the lives of tens of thousands. Also, nobody voted for this. Who's accountable if this thing goes wrong? And why is nobody asking what happens if they break climate instead of fixing it?
Yeah, which is what I said.
Okay, let's go into the video now.
Tell me.
Go to my computer. Thank you.
Oh, geo debate, because it's called geoengineering, what they're trying to do.
Can I leap in? This is a really important moral point. So if I made a decision, or if there was a collective decision to do a geoengineering program, and you put, say, the kind of program I think makes more sense to put about 1 million tons a year in, but let's say, you might end up killing many tens of thousands of people a year as a direct result of that decision. I think that has moral consequences. I don't sweep it under the rug. So this is a case where I take this much differently from Alan and think it's a much more serious issue. Now, it's true that as part of doing that, you would hope that the overall benefits of human mortality would be so that you would save many, many more people than that. But the fact that you would save more people than you kill doesn't mean there's no moral impact of making a decision that directly kills people. And I think that we who talk about this have a duty to be clear-eyed about the direct risks involved in doing it.
I actually think one of the most important questions we heard from was the question about acute triggers, and sort of.
He wants to change the subject real quick.
Yes.
I think we've seen this in this country with Sandy, where climate change for at least a little while came back on the political radar screen because of extreme weather, whether it was actually caused or affected by climate change or not.
And they've actually proven extreme weather events are not.
Well, they switched from climate change to extreme weather because they couldn't keep up the narrative of climate change because there was a year of cooling. And they're not sure if we're in a period of cooling or warming right now.
Yes,
and
it's just extreme weather events now.
So now they're saying extreme weather events. Also extreme weather events, like we showed with the water yesterday, it's easier for individuals to connect their lives to extreme weather events, so they'll accept the propaganda easier.
But also, I mean, this is just a very essential moral philosophy problem. It's called the trolley problem, where you have to decide whose lives count more if there's a train directly heading towards them.
This isn't, because
it is the trolley problem.
No, it's not, because
like what he was saying.
No, it's not. It's different than that, and I'm going to explain why. Because say two people are going to die here and two people are going to die here. How do you decide? It's easy for the government to decide, because if they pull the manipulation lever, now they have geoengineering lever. Now they have control over this population that survives.
Sure.
So if they can,
so it's a twisted trolley problem.
Well, no, it's an easy decision because the government would want the control.
But a normal, regular person, it would be hard to make that decision.
A person's not deciding here. The government's deciding for everybody. They're not voting. They're not debating.
That's what I said in Spanish about informed consent. So nobody is being asked if they're okay with this, if they're okay with being experimented upon, especially if they do eventually release that thing that Bill Gates was funding.
Yeah, sorry
with
if I'm
the
getting angry
volcanic
about
ash.
this subject upsets me to no limits, and especially when you combine it with jibby jabs. The new jibby jabs, I don't know if everybody's informed on this. I need to bring it up on Rumble because I can't talk about it here.
Are you unveiling?
But they have the new type of jibby jabs are non-consensual aerosol jibby jabs.
They're also testing aerosolized inoculations.
And that would go perfect with planes dousing chemicals in the sky.
Yeah, they could just put them both together in the same cloud and rain down upon people.
And all in the name of we're going to save thousands of lives. Yeah, we might kill a few, but
and the lives of a few.
It's not a trolley situation to them. It's obvious what they want to do.
But it should be, is what I'm saying. Like, it's a very debated, easy moral philosophy question that usually is asked. I saw a comment quickly. So Walker says, seems that human rights people or activists care more about transformers teaching children to read than about rich people blocking the sun and small farmers not getting a harvest, which in the end ends up impacting the world way more. I mean, I'm not saying that trans kids and the harms done to them are not important, but I mean, in a global scale, of course, it affects way more actual human rights of people if they try to block out the sun and the livelihood of farmers, because that's what we eat.
And what about all these solar panels? They told all these people to put it on their roofs. Now they want to block out the sun. Solar panels don't work unless there's direct sunlight. They don't work with indirect sunlight.
And also someone commented in the Spanish one that exactly solar panels also essentially make anything around them not be able to live because number one, they leach chemicals, and number two, they're casting a shadow, which is why the sun is important for things to grow.
Yeah. Okay. With that,
I mean,
we've talked about it 3 times now, so we'll bring it up as there is more information. So I'm really hoping the population starts speaking up about this, and it is starting to.
And I mean, of course, a problem about speaking up about this is you end up, in their eyes and with their propaganda, you end up sounding like a conspiracy theorist. And that's the easiest way for them to try to shut down any kind of conversation about this.
But you don't, because now it's actually no longer a conspiracy.
I know, but while I was researching essentially for what I spoke about in Spanish, which is the Bill Gates thing, there were so many Snopes and facts articles and fact checks saying that it's false because he was funding another geoengineering program that got canceled, but then they don't speak about the one that he's still funding and which is still going ahead. So it is hard to it is hard for them for people trying to find evidence and show it to people when most of the things that they can publish out there say that, oh, it's all conspiracy, it's not true, it's all lies.
Yeah, and it's just...
So it is hard to speak up about it.
And how does one small, tiny country like the UK that is completely falling apart at the seams. They have no real political leadership. Nobody's really voting for these people en masse. They're not populously voted in. It's a very small minority. They're actually going to the polls and voting them in, and they're going to allow global geoengineering potentially?
Yes, paid and done by elite millionaires and billionaires and scientists.
That have major repercussions that financially and control-wise benefit the elites and the governments.
And impact society.
Okay, let's do an update on the Shannon Sharpe thing. It's only been one day.
Sure.
I won't replay the clip because we're on YouTube, but yesterday we played the clip where he said he would choke the woman. What?
Yes, so there's an allegation against Shannon Sharpe, who is... I believe he does commentary on
He does commentary
NFL,
as an ex-NFL football player.
Yeah. So yes, now Shannon Sharpe admits to offering $10 million to settle bad behavior claims, now calls $50 million lawsuit a shakedown.
And this is not looking good for him because he offered $10 million. $10 million is a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And the fact that she turned it down, she must have some kind of evidence on him. So... he has the target on its back when he's an ex-football player and he makes millions with his podcast. So she could have been filming a lot of this. She could have asked for him to do certain things, get it on video, and now it's a payday for her.
Yes, and again, this is one more case of the Me Too cases that we keep seeing over and over again. Also, yesterday we spoke about the Harvey Weinstein retrial. So, I mean, there seems to be a bit more coming up in the news about this. Maybe they want to start formulating more scandals about it because they feel like they're losing control now that new evidence is coming out in the Harvey Weinstein thing. So,
and I'm really wondering why he admitted to offering the $10 million. He should have just never said anything, but she probably has it on tape, or she has a document that he offered her $10 million.
Yes.
So she's setting this thing up nicely because she had the recording phone call after the fact, which we played yesterday, and she probably has some kind of document in which he offered her $10 million. That's the second thing, and I'm willing to bet the reason he offered her that $10 million is she's probably got a videotape or something. So she set this thing up. I think
if she did, she set it up pretty well. But I believe he's also been removed from his
podcast he owns.
Not the podcast, the other some other thing he was doing. He was removed from.
Oh yeah, but his podcast is so successful. It's not. He doesn't. He's got go screw yourself money. So okay, let's go. I showed you that.
So apparently now any woman that wants to be a woman and not a man that wants to be a woman is in the womanosphere. So I guess I'll count myself in. Now comes the womanosphere, according to The Guardian. Anti-feminist media telling women to be thin, fertile, and Republican. I don't see anything wrong with any of those things. But
I got a video of this, and you don't hit all the points, but you're right around the edges of a lot of these points.
Like me personally.
Yeah, so this is an influencer talking about males have already fell into the right-wing rabbit hole, and we can't get them back, but we got to protect women. We can't let women get into these conversations because they will go down a rabbit hole. But the things that she's saying don't talk about are actually good things. If you don't talk about those and you do the opposite, you're going to have a kind of a sad life.
Yes.
But let's hear some of it.
If we don't want to lose young women to alt-right indoctrination in the same way we lost young men, we need to be very careful, cognizant, and critical of trends that can lead to the alt-right pipeline. Because while these things aren't inherently conservative, or dare I say, even fascist sometimes, they can be the starting point for a very slippery slope. So here are the top alt-right rabbit holes for...
And she's saying this is top right radical stuff. A lot of this stuff was you'd be considered to be a liberal a few years ago, like about 5-10 years ago. Now it's right wing.
Women that I think we need to be cognizant of and educate around. Clean beauty and clean eating. While opting for more natural ingredients in your skincare and food seems fairly harmless, you can quickly slide down the slope to the alt-right by engaging in content around distrust in regulatory bodies, anti-vax rhetoric, conspiracies around big pharma, and next thing you know, you think you're making America healthy again. Trad wife content. While this starts off as romanticizing homemaking, this quickly can slide into a conversation about promoting very rigid gender norms, anti-feminism, and ideologies that contribute.
Speak against trad wives, though.
Yeah, but I don't mind the trad wife content. But whatever.
I mean, a lot of it is fake.
Yeah, whatever. It's not a big deal. People can critically think.
I know, but I'm commenting also, so we do gaps.
People can critically think, and this girl is wants to start banning this kind of content.
Need to Christian nationalism and white supremacy. Skinny talk and diet culture. While this starts as fitness routines and feeling your best, it's a slippery slope to assigning moral superiority to thinness, which then can slide pretty quickly into eugenics. Homesteading and homeschooling.
Actually, speaking about, I don't even think we can say that word on YouTube, but speaking about that word, it's funny that essentially Planned Parenthood and the whole pro-abortion campaign was funded by a woman who believed in that and to weed out people in the Black communities, which is why a lot of Planned Parenthoods were put there. Her name was Margaret Sanger. Not Margaret Sanger.
Listen, I have a carrot tattoo,
I'll say the name
so while gardening, being closer to our food sources, and taking a hands-on role in your child's education is great, it can quickly lead to mistrust in institutions. Overall, a mistrust in public schooling, public schooling isn't good enough, just lead to...
Public schooling is not good, and this is the thing. I mean, I guess I'm right-wing by this girl's standard, except later on she goes a little bit off the handle, and I'm not into some of the yoga and crystals.
Classism, racism. I feel this is extra important because of the attacks on the Department of Education right now. This problem is just going to get worse. New Age spirituality, tarot, crystals, all that kind of stuff. Make sure the people selling you your crystals aren't... Make sure, I'm passionate about this, make sure the people selling you your crystals aren't QAnon people. Once I spent $200 in a crystal store, and then I went home and looked at the shop and realized that she was a great awakening.
I'm sorry, I do think crystals are ridiculous.
Well, she's talking, don't buy crystals, and then she's I bought $200 worth of crystals.
Weirdo. This is all anti-Semitic, conspiracy, whack job bullshit. And it's rampant in the spirituality space. There's a lot more. I could do this all day, but last one. Soft life living and like feminine energy. While there's some important conversations here around rejecting hustle culture and rest, this quickly leads to ideas about women needing to submit to their husband, back to these really traditional gender roles. And before you get all mad at my comments, like I said, enjoying and engaging in these things aren't inherently like conservative or alt-right. I mean, some of them kind of are, but you know, you need to be cognizant of how these can open doorways to rabbit holes. And once the algorithm kind of attaches on to you, it's slowly gonna...
And then you get the portal.
Yes. And now The Guardian is also warning us about it, but quickly, what was the last thing she said? I had a point about that.
Soft life living or something?
Oh, yes, the whole submitting to your husband thing. So what a lot of people don't understand, and I'm not even religious, I'm not Christian, I'm not Catholic, anything, but what they mean when they say that is that both parties have to submit to each other because they have to become the most important things in their lives to keep family, marriage, etc. healthy. But I quickly wanted to read this because it's funny, like the women and things that they're targeting, because it's essentially now everybody needs to warn women how to think and not to go down rabbit holes because it's scary. But yeah, so a crop of conservative personalities such as Brett Cooper and Candace Owens, love them both, and outlets like Evie, which is Evie Magazine, is essentially the only magazine for conservative women. It is funny because they started out trying not to be like normal magazines, like saying like, oh, how to, because normal magazines would always be like, oh, give the best blowjob of his life, stuff like that. But then Evie kind of started doing the same thing, just putting it like, give your husband the best. Yeah. Which is funny because they fell down that rabbit hole, but whatever. Are convincing young women of a gender essentialist worldview. On the most recent episode of her YouTube show, the right-wing commentator Brett Cooper joined the rest of the world in jeering Katy Perry, Gayle King, and Lauren Sanchez's brief flight to space. So they're complaining about Brett Cooper, saying that their flight to space was fake and stupid and it's a waste of time. And then they just go on. I don't want to go into the Brett Cooper part, but analysis of the 2024 election widely heralded the Manosphere, the coalition of bro podcasters and YouTubers popular with male audiences, as key to delivering Donald Trump's victory. According to yes, because all men are tired of all the feminization and the stupid
Men in general aren't going to vote against themselves and vote against sensibility and common sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now there are the beginnings of an organized effort to create a similar alternative right-wing media ecosystem targeting young female U.S. audiences, one of the few demographics that has until now leaned substantially Democratic and who are at fault for what happened to that country for a long time.
People are waking up to the falsehoods of feminism and the lies that we're told. Yes. And that's why these people have wide appeal right now.
Yes. And I mean, they go on to list like Ali Beth Stuckey, Candace Owens, Alex Clark, all of whom I watch and I really like, Riley Gaines. Like all these women, I would say, are, number one, more feminist than actual feminists because they actually speak up for women's rights and not having to see, penises in their bathrooms, but also just speak about things that we haven't been able to speak about for who knows how long as women because it's not right and it's not feminist. While the women behind these outlets all have different styles and tactics, they are mostly aligned in their desire to return to a gender essentialist worldview, women as submissive homemakers, men as strong providers. And I wouldn't even say that like most of them actually do that because they all talk about and are conscious about they have their own jobs, they have their own podcasts, they have their own voices. So I don't, in certain ways, yes, that's what they preach, but not in the way that they're painting it. Like the Manosphere influencers, these outlets are animated by grievance against wokeness and the belief that conservatives are the real oppressed minority. No. They claim...
Well, there's a little bit of a...
and then it just goes on
There's a little bit of a divergence within the conservative community that they're talking about here.
They're trying to, but they're not able to.
And it's people like Meghan Kelly, who really is a feminist. And she's trying to promote it within the conservative space, but she won't admit that she is. And a lot of other conservative, I guess, influencers, they would say, or right-wing influencers, really are former liberals and really have held on to their feminist beliefs. But, it takes a big tent, I guess.
Yes, and just quickly, so they're talking about something Cooper said, and maybe I believe they added Candace but didn't quote her. So the type of woman these commentators valorize is thin, straight, fertile, traditionally feminine, conventionally attractive to men, and white. Is any of that bad?
I don't know if Candace Owens is white.
Exactly. Also, yeah, there's other.
She's the black face of white supremacy, I guess.
Yes,
That's
she
what they
has,
try
been called that. Though they try to avoid overt racism. Instead of opting for sentiments like, as a minority woman, I'm here to say that you'll be happier and more fulfilled if you aren't consumed by thinking about your race, which is true. Everybody would be happier and more fulfilled if they didn't concentrate just on their race or their own oppression, perceived oppression. But yes, I mean, it's just ridiculous that now they're trying to warn women, and like now they're all worried about feminism crumbling. Also, we talked about the Me Too movement.
The issue they have with this space, and especially recently, and I don't know if you've noticed it, but all these women were controlled by major platforms, so it was top-down control. They've all broken off from their major platforms, like the Daily Wire, and Megyn Kelly used to work for a major news network, and they're all independent, and they've surged in followers. They're surpassing all the men. These women are becoming the most powerful influencers, and they're not attached to any corporation, and they're saying and doing what they want, and that is dangerous to the machine.
And you know why they're becoming so popular? Because, again, we as women weren't allowed to talk or discuss or want these kinds of things until very recently, when people started speaking up about the dangers and the consequences of feminism for us as well.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go from that
And there's nothing wrong with that.
We're going to go from that to Meghan Markle.
Oh, fun. So the opposite. So yes, you were surprised. I actually did know this, but Guy was surprised that Meghan Markle didn't film her Netflix show at her own house because 80 people in the kitchen isn't the childhood memory she wants for her kids. Then why make a damn show?
Justin Bieber's wife copied Selena Gomez, and they both...
Well, that's a conspiracy theory.
Well, they did. And they both said right in the beginning of their show, I'm filming at my own house. Then Meghan Markle... I believe she said that, and it did the same, but now it's come out that it wasn't filmed at her house.
Yeah.
And now she's trying to say it's because she doesn't want 80 people in her kitchen to make bad memories for her kids. I'm sure she has a babysitter, or she can send them out of the house. She's got a cock husband that can take them for the day.
As a woman who hopefully one day will be a mother, I do kind of agree. Like, I wouldn't want to submit my children to that, but then why make the damn show?
You don't have, the kids don't have to be in the house the whole day.
That too, but...
they own multiple houses, I'm sure of that.
They used to, and then they had to kind of like sell off some because they didn't manage their finances properly after they were dethroned, essentially, by the Queen. But then also, I wanted to update. Apparently, this damn show with Love Meghan is coming out for a second season. So if anybody wants
it was supposed to be
binge
canceled.
watch that damn thing.
I didn't know you got this part of the story.
Yeah, so Meghan Markle reveals a big name for guest for season 2 of With Love Meghan on Wednesday. Duchess of Sussex sat down at the annual Time 100 Summit, no idea what she was doing there, to make a few confessions about her life as an entrepreneur, probably to complain once again about how privileged she is and how she's oppressed for some reason now. But yes, apparently it got renewed.
It wasn't renewed. They had signed a multi-year contract, but supposedly Netflix had canceled it because they were going
to try to do something else.
Because the first season was just so bad. They're trying to get out of this full contract with her. I think they figured the easiest way out of the contract is just to go with this shitty show. It will get shitty ratings.
And I also think so many people were hate watching it that it actually got more viewers than maybe they even anticipated.
Well, it didn't make a lot of news, so people were probably hate watching it. But they paid these two. What's the redheaded kid's name? Her husband?
Harry.
Harry and Meghan. They paid him $100 million.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, and they also had deals with Spotify that fell through. I did a whole video about her in Spanish if you want to go see it. But quickly,
she's been canceled by the public. The public rejects everything she's in.
Yes. Because they can see through it. And that is like, there's fake feminism and then there's whatever the hell she's doing. So quickly, Walker says it's true that Planned Parenthood was born as an organization to prevent other races in the USA from reproducing. Exactly. And it was Margaret Sanger. I didn't get it wrong. I was just talking too fast and I thought I got it wrong. Walker says those videos of them doing their makeup are so 2020. Exactly. And she dropped half of things. Luis Medina Sanchez says we don't know who struck first, us or them, but we know that it was us that scorched the sky, Morpheus, the Matrix.
Oh yeah, like I just have a feeling this is going to go really, really wrong, and it's going to be mass repercussions.
The sun, yes, I was thinking of the girl doing her makeup, and I was like, huh?
Oh, we were talking about the sun, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But speaking of race and race relations in the U.S. and Margaret Sanger and etc., apparently the Washington State House backs bill to boost home ownership for more residents of a specific color.
And I have a video. It's boring, but I had a couple boring videos, but I'm tempted just to put them in just so I can show like fact-based evidence.
Sure.
Okay, you can go to my computer again.
Also, let us know if you prefer videos, articles, us talking, etc.
Okay, so this is Washington State. I believe the governor, but...
History now.
This is great. Okay. Washington State's Covenant Homeownership Program provides down payment and closing cost assistance for lower income, first-time home buyers. Lawmakers created the program to address the disproportionate impacts of racial redlining in Washington State. House Bill 1696 modifies the program by adjusting the area median income threshold for program eligibility, introducing loan forgiveness, and modifying the Oversight Committee membership. This modification will create more opportunities to close the racial homeownership gap.
So these are racial loans being given out with 100% forgiveness, so you don't have to pay it back. It's going to be $120,000 loans given out to primarily black families that when I was reading, but when you start favoring one group over another and at the tune of $120,000, this is reparations.
And yes, and especially when there is a housing crisis. Especially, I mean, we lived in Vancouver for a long time, but I mean, Washington State is essentially right there. It's the same thing. So there is a home crisis.
And there's a lot of Democrat states trying to bring this stuff in. California was trying to do the same thing. Yes. California was trying to go a step further. They were trying to do cash reparations up to $100,000. Now, it didn't quite pass, but this has. So it's going to set the precedent to go forward for other states.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a very important goal for all of us here in Washington State. We so appreciate everybody who made this legislation possible. We know it's been, like any legislation, challenging.
Yes.
This one has its share of challenges, as we know.
Yes.
But Representative Taylor has been a real champion of this legislation, and so we appreciate your leadership in particular. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm pleased to sign this legislation.
Oh, you wanted to show the signing?
No, that was it. I didn't watch the end of it. That's why I didn't know what was there.
But yes, I was going to say something. Washington State in the U.S. Its capital is Seattle. So if you need to know where that is, it's essentially Vancouver. So a lot of the hyper woke progressive things that, for example, Vancouver or Canada does trickle down first through Washington, then Oregon, then California, and then the rest of the U.S.
Yeah. So.
But they tested in Vancouver. But it's essentially the same thing, Seattle and Vancouver.
Yeah, but policies like this actually hadn't been tested in Vancouver. Most of the woke stuff gets tested in Vancouver first, just like you said. This policy hadn't been, so.
But also because, I mean, Vancouver doesn't have a huge black population.
Yeah, but they could have done it with other races, but.
Well, First Nations.
Yeah.
Which they did try to do reparations.
No, but First Nations are already.
Yeah, they already did that essentially, but a very long time ago.
They've already gone 10 steps past this now.
Yes.
So okay.
They gave them all their own huge lands.
Well, no, they've created a country with inside Canada for them.
They're allowed to have separate police and.
No. They've literally taken part of Canada out of Canada, and now it's no longer.
It's
Canada.
First Nations territories.
Not just territories; it's a new country.
Lands, yes. But what I'm saying is that their whole legislation, governance, etc., is different than that of Canada.
Okay, let's go to the next story.
So more trade talk, more tariff talk. China tells Trump, if you want trade talks, cancel tariffs.
Yeah, and let's see what I put in here.
And there's been a lot of back.
Okay, China came out with a statement saying China says there is no negotiations with the U.S. over tariffs, and this is directly contradicting. Sometimes I skip some of these tariff stories because they're just dozens of them every day. But Trump came out with a statement the other day. It was on video, and he said, yeah, the tariff I came out with China was really high. We're going to drop that. We're going to drop that way down. It's not going to be anywhere near where it was. And people suspected there was trade talks between China and Trump. But now China's coming out and saying, no, there is no trade talks. They're taking a hard line on Trump, and Trump's backing down on the tariff on China. He went too hard, too fast, and he was expecting China to come in for a negotiation, and they never did. So it's interesting what's happening now. A lot of these tariffs, he's using China and a high tariff on China as a distraction while he gets what he actually wants, and nobody's really watching.
And I mean, a lot of people are still stuck on, because I mean, your whole theory is that he's kind of going after China, but also trying to mainly just go after the EU.
He's going after the globalists in the EU.
Yes.
And he's
but
really
what a lot of people get stuck on is
China.
the China thing right now.
And he really did.
And now everybody's like, oh, Trump overstepped, and now he's having to back
he
down.
may have overstepped, but he's fixing it. He put in this huge tariff.
But do you think that makes him look weak?
No, it makes him look good. He's manipulating the stock market from a crash, meaning he put these high tariffs on everybody, not just China. Then he backed off of them, except for China, and the stock market recovered. So if he would have went right to that small tariff from the beginning, the stock market would have crashed on that small.
No, that's true.
So that's how I view it.
And now everybody's panicking about, Shein and Temu.
You're getting tired. Let's try to keep it.
Well, because I did exercise today. I hadn't exercised in a while, so everything hurts.
Let's keep going.
Sure. More China. What the hell is that? China's fast-growing EV makers pursuing varied routes to global expansion.
So
the EV market.
Yeah, I mainly put this in here because America and a lot of the EU aren't going to allow. It's supposed to be a bar. America and the EU aren't going to allow in a lot of these Chinese cars, and some other nations aren't allowing in these electric vehicles. So now they have an overproduction because they thought they were going to get let in. Everything that was being manufactured in Mexico was ready for the States. Trump kind of shut that down. So now they're having to find other markets, which is interesting because I was just watching the Russian market. The Russian market was a huge market for China, and Russia, because they had all the sanctions, they let all these Chinese car manufacturers in, and a lot of these Chinese cars aren't bad. They can't stand up to Russian weather. A lot of Russian social media just shows these cars going to absolute shit. They're turning into rust buckets. They're not used to these cold weather conditions. They can handle a little bit of cold weather, but not a Russian winter. That's number one. But number two, they allowed all the Chinese auto manufacturers in. And what happened is there was no repair centers and nobody knew how to work on the cars. So if you are going to buy a Chinese car, and we ride in these things for taxis all the time here in Mexico City, a lot of people have these Chinese vehicles. I would recommend to buy BYD just because they do have service centers. They can repair the cars. I do see in Mexico when we're driving around, they do have BYD service centers. Yes. So you want to make sure you do have a service center within your country. Otherwise, these Chinese cars are extremely hard to repair, and they're making them so they break down after a couple of years.
Yes, which is why I keep warning about not purchasing them. But and I don't love it. I mean,
there's no good alternatives
now
right now.
that I've ridden in some of these, Chinese, BYD, all the other ones, you can tell they're not really well made. Like, things rattle a lot.
Yeah,
things
but
are like, it's cheap components.
There's no good.
So what does that say about the batteries themselves?
Yeah, but there's no good alternatives. I mean, yes, you have Toyota, but even Toyota is not being manufactured to the standard it used to be. There are no good car companies right now. They're not manufactured good either. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
They're trying.
So buy a used car.
So even the gas powered cars, you have to realize what happened in that market. Yes, I would take gas over electric, but what happened is the climate conditions, they had to meet certain standards, so the engines had to get smaller and smaller and more eco-friendly, so they last less and less time. So they're breaking down as well.
Then don't buy a car, buy a bike.
Okay.
There's no solution.
Let's go to the next and final story for YouTube here.
Sure. From banning tech to ending sister city ties, U.S. states have at least 240 anti-China proposals.
So yeah, they're going hard and heavy with this decoupling from China. We'll see what happens here, but also these sister cities, I'm glad to see they are decoupling. American cities really need to start putting America first, because when you compare a Chinese city to an American city, the Chinese city is far better built with these newer cities. No, I don't think you know, because I looked into it, and the reason they're able to build these cities so quick is not because they're building them quick and cutting corners. They've built machinery that is new machinery. So for instance, to build a bridge, they pre-manufacture it, roll it out, and they have this bridge maker that can roll the next segment of the bridge out and actually build it faster. They're building it faster because they're more technologically advanced right now with construction machinery.
Or they want to appear that way.
No. Because the U.S. is buying the construction machinery from China now in order to build their bridges and buildings. They took a leap forward because they have all the manufacturing. So what they did is they didn't just manufacture like products. They started manufacturing pieces of like construction engineering that can build buildings and build bridges. And United States had nothing like that.
But we also saw, there are some like documentaries and people that go to China that speak about, for example, the crisis they have in like buildings that are unlivable, stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff happened 10 years ago, and where they're at right now, it's just a completely different. They're living 2 decades ahead of the United States and the U.S. cities. The U.S. cities are not government funded; they're privately funded, so they're not doing a lot of things that China is doing.
But at the same time, because they're privately funded, they could do more.
Oh, we'll see what happens.
Better. Okay. Quickly reading comments. Rafa asks, any info on Philadelphia? I'm going there in June. Do you have any info about Philadelphia?
No, but it's one. It's in I believe it's in a red state, but the city itself is extremely blue. It's extremely Democrat. It's supposed to be overrun with crime, just like Detroit.
Careful.
And things like that. So just be careful in what areas you go in. There's going to be good areas like the core of downtown. There's going to be tourist areas, things like this. But do be careful and stuff like that.
I always tell people, like, also, for example, if they go to California, San Francisco, stuff like that. Coming from Vancouver, people don't really expect the impact of the DRUG crisis, so the illegal substance crisis that there is in these cities, and then they get taken aback by and scared of like seeing all that.
And Philadelphia is a primarily black city, and the crime rate is higher in black cities, so. Just if somebody's asking to use your phone, just know right off the bat. If they ask for the time, don't look down at your watch. You don't want to look away when somebody's talking to you. So just be aware of your surroundings, things like that.
If you hear people screaming or yelling or running around, just go somewhere else.
It's just not, Just be aware of the city. Yes. The daytime's going to be a lot more safer than the night.
Don't talk to strangers.
Okay, you sound like my mother.
Walker says, Chinese cars in general are very bad. Yes, those electric cars are only useful in the first world. In the third world, you're literally spending a lot of money on nothing. But what makes them attractive to people in the third world, let's call it, for example, Mexico, is that they are way cheaper.
Yeah.
But, lo barato sale caro. What's cheap ends up being very expensive. So a lot of people have forgotten that here. Walker also says, China is so secretive that I don't know how legitimate any of that is. I once saw that China created a real estate bubble by building luxurious ghost towns. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, and that's what I said 10 years ago. They
Walker,
did. They had the collapse. But it's interesting what they decided to do with those ghost towns. So they started building all these high rises, and a lot of them were vacant, and the construction companies just disappeared, declared bankruptcy, and nobody was to be found. Mm-hmm. So you had all these half-constructed high rises. What the Chinese government ended up doing, and because they do have top-down control, they were able to come in and they paid for the finishing of these buildings, and now they're selling them off for cheap to the citizens to provide housing. So they did make the best of a bad situation.
But are they going to collapse? Probably.
Well, we'll see what happens. I don't think so.
What's cheap ends up being expensive.
Okay, let's go into...
Rafa says, thanks. Then I won't take my MAGA hat. Probably a good idea. Or just wear it around areas you know are safe.
Well, no, Philadelphia, I wouldn't wear anything Trump in Philadelphia, period.
No. But, it was in Vegas when we were coming down.
Vegas is different.
Yeah, and that it felt different. Arizona, too, felt kind of different. But, you just have to kind of know where to go. And Walker also says you just have to be careful with people with colored hair. That, too. Exactly. Anybody that looks unhinged probably is. And also, I always tell people, just remember, not to fearmonger, but... Crazy people there do have pew-pews.
Well, the crazy liberals really aren't the thing to thread over as much.
Unless you get into when
you get to these northern states, like Chicago, Detroit, especially Detroit. It's one of the most unsafe cities. New Orleans is in the south, but it's the second most unsafe city. I used to live in the States, so I've been to a lot of these places. New Orleans and Detroit are just absolutely deadly. And so Philadelphia is like, just beware of black people when you're there. I'm just going to say
it's true. Yeah.
It's true.
Okay, so speak now or hold your peace until we get to RUMBLE.
Yeah, I should have put the video of they had a community center where all these young kids had all these guns and bags. It was crazy.
GUNS.
They were playing basketball, and they must have had over 100 weapons between the 15 people that were on the court.
Yeah, and it's funny that a lot of these cities are, gun-free, GUN-free zones, and they're banned in those states, but somehow they end up with most of them. So
okay, let's go over to
RUMBLE. Thank you for being here, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thank you so much for all your support. We'll see you over there. Hopefully it works.
Okay.
Oh, it's not letting me end it. Why won't it let me end the stream?
It doesn't want us gone.
Hold on, people. Things are... Yes. Let me see if I can even end this thing. Walker says, the more extravagant the colors, the more venomous the being. Nature is wise. Like frogs, exactly. Okay. Let me see if I can end it now.
Okay, so the first story I'm going to go into, I'm just going to talk about it first before I go into the clip while you end the stream.